Hi everybody, I'm going to look at how to keep your earnings high and your costs low in this video. I did do one before, but that was just on how to increase your reserve. I'm going to take that video down and put this up instead because the quality of the video, well, the audio wasn't great, so I'm going to go over it again today. Now, my first point is sell horses for profit. Now, how to best do this is you can breed your own horses and try and do that quite cheaply and then put those horses up for sale above what it cost you to breed and make them, so you can do that. Another thing you can do is go into the sales, whether that's auctions or direct sales, and look for horses that you think are pretty good money for the amount you're getting. So let's just choose something quite random and see what we get. You might want to go for something that has quite high genetic potential, so there's something quite low there, for example, in price. And, on this particular server, decent enough GP. That would be fairly easy to train. The higher a genetic potential a horse has, the more skills it gains. So you sort of want to go for horses on your particular server, whatever their GP. It does vary, but it means that when I train that up, it has the potential to get more skills. Now you can actually, if you have VIP, and I think as well with the Pegasus account as well, you can go to view details and you can see a bit more about it, so you can see how much it's gained in rides and games and training sessions, competitions, rides on the beach and lessons and so forth. And it tells you how much that's complete, so you can basically go about, predicting how much it's going to increase in skills, and people will usually pay quite a decent amount for high skilled horses. So I could go into sales, look for relatively high GP, maybe he's not been trained up, and then spend some time training it and then selling it on. You don't have to do this. It's just something that some people like to do. So that's one of the ways you could do it. Or just breed your own horses for a small amount and sell them on. Now, my next point that I'm going to go on to is enter and win lots of contests and competitions daily. Now, what do I mean by contests? A lot of players sometimes run competitions on their pages. You could go on to their pages and enter those competitions, and usually those competitions are free of charge. And if you maybe win, you possibly win a horse or an item or something like that, and you get that for free, and then you can go on ahead and sell that on. So it's a good way to make a little bit of Equus without any cost. Now, as for competitions, any of your horses at all, you don't have to have amazing horses or anything like that. Any competition you enter with a horse, there is the potential to win Equus. So first, second, third, or fourth, or fifth. No matter where you end up, you can earn some Equus. And this horse, there's several options for me there in Western. You can also enter in Classical. So if you want to know how much you're winning in competitions, you can go to your breeding and then your competitions, and you can see here. And your winnings are displayed here and where you placed, and what horse it was, and the time, and the date, and the name of the competition. So that's quite a good way to earn some Equus. Now, my next point is sell unwanted items like tack, manure, and things to the shop. So if you go to the shop on the breeding farm, and you want to look for this button here, which is resell items, and you can have a look and you can pick things you want to sell. Now, for example, I don't ever use MK saddles, so sell that. Made 1,000 Equus. There we go. Now, one of the next things is sell black market items in the exchanges. So I'm going to go into the shop again. I want to look for the exchanges items here. And you can check how many exchanges you have up at the top here. Now, one of the things is, for example, say I wanted to sell an Achilles heel, right? What you can do is first actually check. So put in, I'm offering Equus, I'm looking for an Achilles heel, and confirm. So see what other people are selling theirs for. And then if you think you have a rough idea how much you want to sell for, offer an exchange. Say Achilles heel, Equus, and then put it in there and click OK. Now that's up for sale, and if somebody accepts that, then you'll get your Equus from that. Now you can do that with quite a variety of things. My next point is sell coverings. Now, I find selling coverings from unicorns is best, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're not sometimes in the top groups or in a position to offer top coverings, unicorns are usually the best way to do it if you are lucky enough to get one. because people are usually always trying to breed unicorns on the server, a server. So I'm just going to pick one here that I have. And I'm also going to pick a female, and I will explain why in a second. Let's see, we will go with this one. Okay, now this is a mare, this particular unicorn here. Now if I go cover my mare, it then automatically will select what breed it is and things like that. But if you just want to look generally, I'm going to put it on no matter in display coverings. And you can see what blup the unicorn stallions are, the price. Now I have, on this other horse, I have a Welsh, and he is 100 blup. So let's look with the mare for a Welsh that's 100 blup. So I've had a look there, and I can see that there's a couple here. So I look at the genetic potential of mine, and mine's foundation's much lower. So I might just want to put up a covering at much less. So I've put it up at 500 because there's these other ones and they're up at 5,000, but they have higher genetic potential. So you want to try and be aware of what you price your coverings for. Whether it's a unicorn or a normal horse or anything at all, be aware of what other people are pricing theirs at. So you're not putting a covering up at a really ridiculous price that nobody's going to pay because they can get far better. Because it wastes the energy of your horse, and you're not, you could go and spend it on competitions and get more Equus. So be aware of that. So I'm just going to close those unicorn tabs. Now, if I go back to my notes, the next thing I've got is do lots of lessons every day with your horses. Now, I'm going to demonstrate one thing with this. I'm going to pick a horse that I have in a particularly good EC, and a horse I have in a not so good EC. So I'm going to pick one of my divines for this. It doesn't matter if it's divine or a normal horse, but right. One I haven't looked after today. Okay, so this, I'm just holding this over it. Your mare can participate in riding lessons. The equestrian centre will pay you 56E. Now, this equestrian centre's lessons pay me 56E. The maximum you can get is 60. Now, most equestrian centres aren't 60E. So be aware of the lessons in an EC and try and pick ECs that have good lessons. So if I go into just my normal fillers tab, for example, and I'm going to pick a horse that I know isn't in an equestrian centre currently. Oh, the X there. So this horse isn't in an equestrian centre, so look, register my horse. Now you can look for prestige. So the higher it is, the better the lessons. Now, nothing's coming up here. I have boxes reserved to me, but I don't want to use those. So let's look for something a little bit lower and see if anything else comes up. So here we go. Now you can actually check how much it is a day. So say I didn't want to pay, more than 10 a day, and I search that again. Nothing's come up on this particular one. Now, sometimes you have to pay more for better ECs, but you've got to sort of be aware, right, okay, the prestige isn't bad, so the lessons, are going to be fairly okay. So this one's got 46. So I spent 60E to board this horse there for 3 days, and I've got my 46E back, so didn't really cost that much. So you want to be aware of the ECs that you're boarding in, what the lesson prices are, and that will help you reduce cost if you think about it that way. So, and lessons are a good way, of course, down Equus as well, especially if you're doing them with a little large amount of horses. Now my next point is make sure you get your salary every day. Now, I am aware that they're going to be changing the lessons with the new updates in future, and they're going to be removing the jobs. But if you're watching this and the jobs are still there, you can go to profile and my job. Now, I currently am a saddler in my own EC, and I'm getting paid, and it says every day you connect a horse and take care of at least one of your horses, you will get paid automatically. So if I go to my office, I can check this. So if I go way down, it says you've been paid your salary. So depending on what job you have and how much you're getting, this will obviously be different. but that is to go in future, so it won't be there. Now, for the next part is you can make money from achievements, but not from trophies. Now, I'm already on the trophies, but if you are on the objectives, it will be down here on your profile. It will come up, and you can earn money sometimes for some of those objectives, and those do change. So the next thing is several divines will offer you Equus for visiting them. So I've opened a couple of tabs with some already. Now, one of them is Topaz. Topaz, when you congratulate them, give you 50E. Sometimes they'll give you a diamond. But if they give you 50E, you can do that with 5 topazes a day. You can congratulate them. So that's one way. Now, if you're lucky enough to own a sapphire, what you can do is, it will say down here on the history box, it will say sapphire is waiting for you on a player's page, and then this part here will be the name of the player. So if I then go to directories, and I go to player, and I search this, and I go to their page. Now, I was already on this earlier, but whenever you visit a page, one day it will give you 1,000 Equus, the next day it'll give you a diamond, the next day after that will be 1,000 Equus again, and then it'll go back to a diamond, so you can get some Equus that way. Now, the next one is if you own a Curious. Now, here's one here, and I will explain. So, they basically, instead of producing droppings or manure, they produce money instead. So if you're lucky enough to own one of them, you can get money from that. Now, how do you get one of these? Well, on the 13th of every month at the site's update, Cross will give an owner 1 pass, but only if they were logged in the day before. And, hold on. Sorry, it's every month 1 horse among those named Junior Crosses is turned into a Crosses. So basically what you need to do is you need to name a horse on your your game, Junior Crosses. So that horse that we bought earlier, if we find it. So if I take that name out and I add Junior Crosses, there we go. Basically, that means there's a chance that it might turn into one. Now, it's because there's so many horses named that it is so very, very small a chance. And just because you've loads named, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make any difference at all. But it's a chance. And, you know, if you're lucky enough to get one, you know, good on you. But it doesn't happen for everyone, obviously. It can't. Now, I'm going to go back to this again. If you own a Greyfell, okay, so if you don't know what a Greyfell is, I will show you right now. Go down to Divines. Here's a Greyfell. Okay, so basically if this Greyfell lives for 30 days since the last time it died, if I send it to heaven and then revive it with the Pandora's box. No, if I send it to heaven, I get 20,000 Equus and 2 diamonds. And then I can revive it with a Pandora's box so it comes back to life. So this is basically it. If it has survived at least 30 days since the last birth or rebirth, you receive 2 diamonds and 20,000 Equus when you send it to heaven. So if you have a lot of them, that's not bad actually. But you do have to use a Pandora's box to bring it back to life, otherwise you'll never see it again. Now for my next part, I will look at the parchment. Right, so basically what parchment does, if you don't already know, I'll go down to this. Okay, so when you put parchment on a horse, for every 1 bit of manure equals 40 Equus. So a horse that had produced 4 bits of manure the day before now earns you 160. So if it was a horse that produces 2 bits of manure, it would be 80 a day. So if you put lots of these on lots and lots of horses, you're getting Equus instead of manure. So that's one way you can do it. Now, one of the other things you can do is you can send horses to the safe haven. Now, I don't personally do this. You get 400E for normal horses. I think you get, it's because I don't usually send horses to the safe haven. I think I had to send one for an objective, and this is it here. Another thing you can actually do, so you go into the safe haven, you can actually stroke them. Now I've already stroked one, but you do get a little bit for that as well. It's usually a surprise, but it's usually Equus, not always, but sometimes. So you can send them to the safe haven if you want, and that is way to get Equus, but generally you'll probably get more if you put them in the sales. Being honest, usually you do. So I don't personally do it, I don't see any point in it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, which I haven't actually listed here, but it is sort of in relation to competitions daily, is the Grand Prix. Now, if you don't have access to the Grand Prix yet, how do you get a ticket? Well, you need to open Horns of Plenty. And Horns of Plenty are basically, it's just based on luck. There is no yes or no, I'm definitely going to win a Grand Prix ticket, but you eventually should get one. So there's two types of Grand Prix. There is the classical Grand Prix and there is the Western Grand Prix. So I'm going to open both of these. So this is the Western Grand Prix, this one. And this is the classical Grand Prix. So on a Monday there's your cross country, Tuesday is trotting, Wednesday show jumping, Thursday's dressage, and Friday's gallop. And for the Western one, it's cutting on a Monday, Western pleasure on a Tuesday, Wednesday's reining, Thursday's trail, and Friday is barrel. Now, why is this of interest? Well, the reason this is of interest is because if you place in the first 100 horses, you get 2,000 Equus, and for every horse you put in, even if they don't come in the first 100 horses, gets 1,000 Equus. And if you're lucky enough to have a thing called the Typhoon bonus, and I will explain how you get the Typhoon bonus in a moment, if you're in the first 100 you get 4,000 Equus, and everybody else gets 2,000. So if you're after the first 100 horses, you get that. Now, by default you can enter 2 horses. And when I said 2 horses, that means you can enter 2 in the classical and 2 in the Western. And they don't have to be the same horses, they can be completely different horses. Whatever you like. Now, the reason, now as you see it, just strength of the Typhoon. Doubles the gains of contestants from events. Basically what that means, doubles your prize money. In the simplest form, that's what it does. How do you get bonuses for the Grand Prix? You basically get them in hops. Once again, just like the Grand Prix ticket. Now the second part, now if you've noticed, it says registrations are still open and you have 4 more horses to register today. Now the reason I can enter 4 horses is because I have another bonus, which is called the Tornado. And that allows me to enter 4 horses per day in events instead of 2. So that means I can enter 4 in the classical and 4 in Western. So once again, more Equus. So I'm going to enter my horses. So I've picked out 4 Western horses and 4 classical. So how you enter the Grand Prix, if you've got the ticket, you can click Grand Prix, register my horse. Close that one. If I just go through all of these and register these all in the Grand Prix. Now make sure you have enough energy, so give that a turnip. Now once I've entered enough, it will disappear. As you can see, it's gone from this Western horse, and it's also gone, well, if I just refresh the page, yeah, it's also gone, the classical cup's gone as well. So now what happens is, whenever the Grand Prix runs, which is at midnight, and it will depend where you are, remember, it's based on the game time, it's not based on usually where you are. So if I refresh this page, and this is the classical Grand Prix, you can see what your registrations are, and there's my 4 horses there. And it shows me that I can't enter any more today. And the same with the Western. If I refresh, as you can see at the minute it said I had 4, but I have entered, so if I refresh the page, and now I'm not allowed to. So that will run, and when that runs, it's not when you enter, it's when the competition actually runs, then you'll get paid. So, you know, don't be expecting as soon as you enter to immediately get it. You have to wait until the Grand Prix actually runs. So if I go back, I forgot what I was talking about. Right. I feel like I've lost my notes. I've lost my notes, haven't I? Yeah. If I write notes, no. Oh, okay, here we go. Right, we found it. It's all good. Okay, take a quick break for a minute. Okay, so the second part is how do you keep your costs low? Buy horses at reasonable or cheap prices and take into consideration how much the horse is going to cost you and how much it's going to earn you. So there is absolutely no point in going into the sales, buying a really, really, really expensive horse and not utilising it in some way that's going to actually earn you Equus over time. So be very aware of, you know, there's no point in going and buying a really expensive horse unless it's actually going to add value for you. So do take that into consideration. And the next one is to try and use meadows to feed horses rather than feeding, as meadows cost nothing to feed, excluding the cost of boarding in the EC. So what I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So if I just go into my pick a random horse. Okay, I'm going to register it in an equestrian centre. So we'll see if I can find any. Remember, you can check how much an EC costs, and the least is 10 a day and the most is 25 a day. So I've picked 10 a day there. I've clicked display the best. So picking this one, and you can see the rate here. So that's, I'm boarding for 3 days, and you can check how much. So if I wanted to board for 60 days, for example, and I click that, it'll go up to 60. So let's say I'll board for 60 days, so I'll click that. Put to bed, groom. Now, as you can see, this horse needs quite a bit of feeding now. It shows you how much it costs. So, cost of the chosen meal for this one is 20 Equus. Now, the better an EC usually is, and the better the meadows that EC has, the more you can feed for, basically the more you can feed. And I'll sort of explain that in a second. So if I click on 10 hours this, it shows me how much energy it'll add. It'll show me how much it's going to give me in kilos. And it, as you can see, it costs absolutely nothing. So what I'm saying is, if you have access to a good EC with really good meadows, good lesson prices, you can make profit on boarding there. If you go for an EC that's maybe really expensive, bad meadows, bad lessons, it's going to actually cost you more in the long term to look after your horses. So sometimes being very aware of what ECs you're going into is a really good thing, because you can save you a heap of money in the long term. If you're somebody that really wants to really put up your reserve, feeding horses by the meadows is one of the best ways, because if you feed by the meadow and you do lessons every day, basically it doesn't even cost you anything practically to look after your horse. So, and even you can just partially feed. You don't have to feed the horse completely using that. So what you could do is feed with a meadow, and then maybe feed just the rest of it with this. So now it only costs 13 because I fed the meadow rather than feeding all 10 kilos. So you can take that into consideration. Now, one of the next things is try and get reasonable or cheap coverings for stallions. And I was kind of explaining that a little bit earlier. So if I go for cover my mare, and say I want to go for a 100 blip horse, and I want to go for the best genetic potential I can find, or close to that. Okay, so there's quite a fair range in price here. We've got some that are 2,500 and some that are only 1,000. So basically look for stallions that are quite good, but also reasonable in price. There's no point in you covering a really poorly trained and, you know, low block mare with an amazing stallion if you're going to get a mediocre foal, because chances are you're not going to make a huge amount on the foal. So be aware of it and try and, you know, breed smartly with your horses. So the next thing is, I just want to mention this. There was an introduction of what is called the vet fees, and that means that based on your reserve, it affects how much the vet's going to cost you. So if you have a really high reserve, it's going to cost you a lot more. Now, I keep my Equus extremely low. I used to keep huge millions of Equus. Since they brought in the the vet fees, I completely got rid of my Equus, and I keep my Equus about 10,000 E, usually, and not much higher, because it costs me only, I think it's 100 Equus to cover my own mares with my own stallion, which is really low. So if you want to sort of just be aware of that, if you breed quite a lot, maybe it's not a great idea to have a massive reserve. So that's something to take into consideration. So, and as I mentioned earlier, try to board in good but cheap ECs and make sure they have good lessons prices. So I hope that was helpful. One of the other things I'll just mention quickly is if you go to the community and the creation space. Now, I've already voted today. Now, there is a certain period of time you can vote. And you can vote, I believe at the moment it's 50 votes per day, and you get Equus for voting. So every time you vote, you get Equus. So if you do those 50 votes, it's going to add up your reserve. Now, if you want to actually check how much you're getting in your reserve, you can actually click on your Equus, and you can get, if you want to add, you can add with passes and diamonds. You can see a general summary of the past 7 days on your Equus, so what you've been spending on it and what you've been earning, and you can hover over some of these like the miscellaneous incomes and see a bit more detail. And you can also see the complete history, which is really detailed, and you can see everything that's come in and out of, so you can go back quite far actually as well. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was helpful and hope you had a lovely day. Bye bye.